So in this session we'll look at the topic of international expansion, and here we'll build on the theories that we explored in the session on internationalisation strategy. Now, simply put, international expansion refers to plans between business entities in different countries aimed at increasing profits. And in terms of learning outcomes, by the end of this session you'll be able to describe the key strategic approaches to international expansion which are available to the key decision maker in an organisation. And you'll also be able to describe the key challenges which each of these strategic alternatives brings with it. Now, there are numerous factors which could prompt an organisation to consider expanding in an international market context, and these factors can be categorised as either push factors or pull factors. Now, the main push factors for an organisation to pursue a strategy of international growth include an excess capacity of product, having a unique product, having a company-specific advantage, having a market advantage, and also being driven by the individual ambitions of the strategic leader. The main pull factors include a saturated domestic market, competitive pressures, and also attractive export development or incentive programs. Organisations looking to develop their corporate strategy internationally must consider market strategies, financial strategies, the structure of the organisation, including where it's located, and cultural and people issues. We also need to consider the relative attractiveness of any international opportunity, and for an international strategy to make sense at all, then the situational factors have to be right, and the potential results and returns involved in such a move must exceed the investment which must be made. In addition, the choice of appropriate product lines, markets, entry mode, and the speed of expansion all need to be considered when internationalising. Now, clearly different competitors in the same industry adopt a variety of competitive strategies, and the strategic choice here for the organisation, such as choosing the most appropriate range of products or services, must be based on a comprehensive analysis of both the opportunities offered and also the strategies employed by the firm's main competitors. And here a key structural consideration of the organisation is where to actually make the various products and services to obtain the necessary people and other resources required in order to be as close as appropriate to each defined geographic market and to manage cost efficiently and effectively. Another key structural issue is how best to structure the organisation itself in order to control it effectively while simultaneously ensuring sufficient responsiveness to the changing environment. And it's important here to think about cultural differences between different countries, which can have a deep and lasting impact on the overall performance of any organisation looking to grow by entering into new international markets. Cultural differences are revealed through values, rituals, heroes and symbols, according to Hofstede 1991, who identifies 5 key dimensions to describe cultural variations between countries. These variations include masculinity versus femininity, individualism versus collectivism, uncertainty avoidance, distance from power or hierarchy, and long-term versus short-term orientation. More prosperous nations have found to be more individualistic and poorer ones more collectively orientated. Uncertainty avoidance was more evident in European nations, while most countries studied had a short-term orientation. And firms that seek rapid internationalisation must decide between opting for an efficient distribution network and targeting countries that are physically closer, or take account of cultural similarities. A number of UK and American research studies have investigated the relative success of diversification strategies, and despite problems with researching this topic due to the availability of longitudinal data, as well as comparing the performance of businesses over time, most of the findings are consistent. Research published over a number of years indicates that the more diversified companies had the highest sales and earnings growth and the lowest share capital value depreciation. Top options for going global are developing new markets for existing products and international diversification, which are located in different quadrants on the Ansoff matrix, with the latter being the riskiest since it takes the company away from its core expertise in production and domestic distribution. Going global may seem ambitious, but it's a viable strategy if well managed by the leadership team. This approach involves simultaneous entry into numerous different geographical markets and is most viable for companies or entrepreneurs that have internationally transferable technology or diversification alternatives. One such option, as we've seen, is acquisition. However, if the logic behind an acquisition is poor, the merged company is likely to underperform, however well the two companies may be managed as one corporate whole. If the overall vision is good but implementation is weak, then underperformance is again likely because synergy will not be created. If companies develop by a series of acquisitions, typically several banks will become involved, which may be spread worldwide, and therefore their cultures and lending philosophies may differ. Their levels of exposure will vary, and the assets securing the loans will not be the same. And from this, certain banks may see themselves as lenders to just one part of rather than the whole acquired company. Problems can also arise if a bank gets into financial difficulties itself, or if the company seeks to extend a loan or adjust the terms. It's also one of the toughest and most risky, and many alliances fail. Consequently, 3 important questions must be answered satisfactorily. 1. Why use an alliance at all? 2. Who should the organisation select as a partner? And 3. How best to implement the agreement. An alliance or joint venture can take many forms, such as direct competitors sharing common skills with the objective of increased market share, and it could also involve less direct competitors with complementary skills working together where the intention is likely to be benchmarking and learning for mutual benefit. And also, another common example is related companies sharing different skills and competencies, collaborating together to form an alliance that generates synergy through cooperation, innovation, and also lowering costs as a result, while allowing each partner to concentrate on its own core competencies. And remember that there are many reasons why an organisation might choose a joint venture or strategic alliance as a strategy for international growth. And these include the cost of acquiring another company or share of the market being too high, legislation may prevent acquisition, or alternatively political or cultural differences could mean that alliance is more likely to facilitate integration than would a merger or acquisition. Alternatively, this route may offer the opportunity to provide a total customer service package which adds to the value chain by securing key supplies or distribution capability which otherwise would not be available to the organisation on its own. The threat from competition also often drives competitors into closer collaboration, but they may not wish to merge. For example, American and European car manufacturers have taken stakes in Japanese businesses where outright acquisition is unlikely, but there are still potential rewards to be gained from working closely together in international markets. And also, we have to think about protectionism in certain markets, which necessitates a joint venture with a local company, and this has been particularly true in China, one of the world's fastest growing economies. Cantor 1990 offers these key determinants of success, and again we must remember here that the strategic alliance or joint venture must be important strategically for both partners. Ideally, both partners should bring complementary rather than exactly the same competencies to the arrangement, and information must be shared openly at all times. There should also be genuine integration to create linkages, even though this may be across divergent cultures, and trust is essential again at every stage of the process. Olney 1989 argues that successful collaboration requires commitment on both sides, and without sufficient management time, trust and respect, the agreement is likely to fail. The outcome of the alliance will depend on both the commitment of the partners and the emergent power and influence they exert, and mutual benefits may mean sacrifices on both sides. If circumstances change during the period of the alliance, flexibility may be required as the objectives and priorities of either or both partners may change, and cultural differences will have to be reconciled. Internationalisation ultimately is a process which develops over time and consists of a number of phases. The models are influenced by both physical distance and the tendency for those people involved in first-time exporting or trade to work mainly with countries which they feel comfortable with culturally, and geographical proximity, where initial exporting will take place to countries that are nearby. Criticisms of stage models of internationalisation include that they are ill-equipped to consider companies that engage in rapid and more direct forms of internationalisation. Furthermore, the implied sequential process is not inevitable, and there's evidence of companies moving backwards and forwards or even jumping stages within the model. Evidence of rapid internationalisation by high technology products, whose window of opportunity in the world market can be quite limited, has further added to the criticism. There's also a range of direct entry choices available to the organisation. The first of these is licensing, which refers to agreements that provide unilateral technology access, frequently through patents, to a licensee in return for a fee. Another option is second sourcing agreements, which regulate the transfer of technology through technical product specifications in order to produce exact copies of products. Next, we have customer-supplier relationships, which are co-production contracts and co-makership relationships that basically regulate long-term contracts. Alternatively, we have joint R&D pacts and joint development agreements. And lastly, joint ventures, which, as we've seen already, are the combinations of the economic interests of at least two separate companies in a distinct organisational entity. Often firms looking to overcome the type of challenges we've explored here opt to go down the franchising route, as this offers a potential solution to many of these key issues. But there are a number of models dependent on franchise relationships. The first module is the manufacturer-retailer model, and this is where the retailer as franchisee sells the franchisor's product directly to the public themselves. For example, in the case of new motor vehicle dealerships. The next approach is the manufacturer-wholesaler model, where the franchisee, under license, manufactures and distributes the franchisor's products, for example, a soft drink bottling arrangement. Then we have the wholesaler-retailer model, and this is where the retailer as franchisee purchases products for retail sale from a franchisor wholesaler, typically a wholesale cooperative set up by the franchisee retailers who are contractually obliged to purchase directly from it. And examples include hardware and automotive product stores. And lastly, we have the retailer-to-retailer model, where the franchisor markets a service or product under a common name and standardised system through a network of franchisees. And this is a classic business franchise format. So clearly there's a lot to think about for the organisation considering an international growth strategy, and many strategic approaches which are available to the key decision maker in an organisation. And each of these comes with its own key challenges. And ultimately the role of the strategic decision makers within the firm is to establish the most appropriate approach and ensure it's executed as effectively and as efficiently as possible.